Someday I think I'm going to wake up and folks on the left, Democrats on the left, far left progressives, they're going to figure it out. And I'm not going to have any podcasts. I'm going to have no material. I'm going to be like, well, they finally squared it away. Well, until then, we're just going to go ham every single day. DC City Council rolls back tipped minimum wage increase after seeing negative impacts on the industry. Let's see. You pushed costs too much and restaurants closed? Is that what happened? People lost their jobs? Oh, shocker. Let's get into it. Here we go. You just wonder, how can people be so obtuse, right? How can people be so dumb? How can they be so out of touch with reality? All right, you're going to artificially jack up one of the major components of a business cost, and then you're just gonna people need a living wage without any consideration to whether that industry can withstand it. Well, DC, here we go. Actually, we got a little video on this. Let's watch the DC video.
All new tonight, you can hear it there. Protesters kicked out of the DC council chambers. Chair Phil Mendelson having them removed so the council could vote on a controversial measure on pay for tipped workers. It was one part of finalizing next year's nearly $22 billion budget, which was approved tonight.
Now, some council members leaving unhappy with the hours-long vote and how it ended. DC News Now's Daniel Hamburg was there when they passed that budget.
And Daniel really got heated in there.
It did, Chris and Susan. Nobody was arrested, but one police officer I talked with estimated about 15 to 20 people that they had to remove from the chamber first and then remove from the Wilson building altogether, all over Initiative 82, which was, of course, the tipped minimum wage bill initiative that was passed by voters in November 2022 that would raise the minimum wage until it hits the standard minimum wage for the entire district. Now, again, let's take a look at what it looked like. This was around 7 o'clock tonight when all those people started screaming in the council chamber with I-82 supporters disrupting the vote. Now, council members Christina Henderson and Charles Allen put forward this amendment they say is a compromise between what some workers want and what some restaurant owners want after passing.
You know what? This is indicative of the Democrat Party in and of itself right now. Somebody yelling very loudly, and you can hear the noise, but nobody's listening. Nobody's listening because you're a lunatic. You're just like, yeah, you're a lunatic. You are shouting shenanigans and nobody's listening because you don't have anything to say. You don't have anything to say. And this is how the far left progresses, right? Progressive. Let's see. You drove a bunch of businesses out and a whole bunch of people lost their jobs. I guess that's progress. That's progress.
Workers want and what some restaurant owners want. After passing with a vote of 7-5, the tipped minimum wage will now increase every 2 years until it reaches 75% of the full minimum.
Look at these absolute losers. They're just losers. I mean, what else can you say?
By 2034, the current tipped wage of $10 is frozen through the middle of next year. Here's why Chairman Phil Mendelson said there needed to be a compromise, but Councilmember Janeese Lewis George disagreed.
Customers are confused. Are these service charges? How much do you tip? Restaurant prices have gone up. The restaurants, many of the businesses are struggling because they have to adjust their business model.
We need to prioritize helping restaurants adapt rather than continuing to make sacrifices at the expense of the workers who keep DC's economy strong.
We've seen what's happened. We've been watching what's happening with restaurant prices, and restaurants are really struggling because almost every single component of their cost basis has gone up, and it has gone up dramatically. I mean, just everything across the board that they bring in as product to their consumer, whether it's, anything to do with food, anything to do with booze, That has all gone up because everything's gone up with inflation, and particularly the food industry has some of the highest inflation happening right now. And so you add another layer of that on top, you add a labor component, more money to the labor component. These businesses can't make a go of it. It's as simple as that. Seattle has seen that firsthand. And, with Uber, Seattle's got some of the highest Uber price. It's got the highest Uber price in the United States. It's got the highest DoorDash pricing in the United States. And it's decimated those businesses. Volume is way down. Those employees, those contractors, they're getting a fraction of the business they once did because of geniusness moves like this. Well, we're just going to get everybody working wage. Whether or not the industry can withstand it, we're going to do it. And this is what we're doing. And, communism is great. Let's all be commies. And that's literally the road they've gone down. It's a road laden with shenanigans. And the end result is, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe that's not such a great idea. These businesses can't take the hit of their labor component going through the roof. They just can't. Now you have other people saying, well, if they can't pay their employees working wage, then all right, but you want them to stay in business, or you want them to go out of business, and then they fire the employee that you're talking about, and then they're out of a job? How does that look? What does that look like? Zero income? What does that look like versus slightly less income than what you're proposing, which is not viable from a cost basis standpoint, period. Right? DC Council approved a nearly $22 billion budget for fiscal year 2026 Monday night. About an hour before the final vote, 15 to 20 protesters were kicked out of the DC Council chambers and the Wilson building for protesting changes to Initiative 82. Chairman Phil Mendelson had them removed because they were being disruptive. Absolutely. Yeah, I am all for that. Because these libtards, they gotta go. Because they got motor mouths and they don't say anything. They just go, and they got nothing. They got nothing. I don't understand the disruptions because it's if people think that somehow they get more support if some disruptive and they scream and swear at anybody. Yeah, it's called the far left. It's called the left. Screaming at people, instead of going to these No Kings protests, the left, why don't you guys go out and clean up some of your cities? A lot of work to be done there. A lot of work to be done. I mean, you could go down to Portland and start cleaning up some of those homeless encampments. Come to Seattle, do the same thing. And we've got some stellar homeless encampments here and just pristine park area it once was. But when the homeless get through with it, it's like, what third world dump are we situated in right now? I just don't understand that. The screaming and the disruption, it's because they yell and they think that that's how they get attention. You yell and you scream. The disruption makes it hard on everyone. The public who's in here in the chamber and the public who's watching. We have to stop and wait. But they have been told that this is how you get action. You make it happen. It's not really how adults work, is it? But these people aren't adults. They're simply not. They are children playing at adults. That's the best way you can describe it. Or if they are fully grown adults, mentally, they're stunted at an early teenage level where they can't really make good decisions that actually result in something that a community can talk about. Voters approved Initiative 82 in November 2022 to phase out the tipped minimum wage and align it with the standard minimum wage. Council members Christina Henderson and Charles Allen put forward an amendment they say is a compromise between what some workers want and what some restaurant owners want. It's a recognition that another steep increase in labor costs at this moment might change DC's wonderful and overwhelmingly local restaurant industry. While it slows down implementation, it continues to close the gap between the tipped minimum wage and the full minimum wage. After passing with a vote of 7-5, the tip wage will increase every 2 years until it reaches 75% of the full minimum wage by 2034. Current tipped wage of frozen $10 is through the middle of next year. You got to remember, though, I mean, you got a handful of tables, you're making way over minimum wage. Way over minimum wage. I mean, that's that's where the whole tip thing, I find the whole tip thing has really gotten out of control. You go into a mini mart now and you're asked, would you like to leave a gratuity for the dude who just rang up my groceries that I brought to him from his store? No, 0 tip. You know, if somebody does great service in a restaurant, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. But for all this other stuff, like, how about the drive-through at Starbucks? Are we really supposed to tip there? I mean, it's like, okay, somebody else put the order together and you just kind of brought it out. I get it. You're trying to squeeze money out of us. And, you know, most of the time out of guilt, I'll do so. Current tip wage of $10 is frozen. January 1st, 2026, employers have to give detailed breakdowns by source on pay stubs, including a list of bonuses, commissions on sales, service charges, or other sources. So on top of just making it financially, now restaurant owners got to do a bunch of other nonsense because you got a bunch of commies in your community that are just like, workers of the world unite, greatest thing ever. Restaurant industry is an incredibly volatile industry. It's been true before and after I-82. It's a high-risk venture, not for the faint of heart. I don't know. I mean, one of my buddies owns 2 sports bars, right? Buddy Dan. And he's had with the inflationary, impact that the economy's had on his businesses. He has done increases of pricing on his menus, and it's still a struggle, and it's because he needs to just jack things up. But that's when you end up with the $32 burrito, literally. And if you don't know that story, I'll make it super short. My son Kiernan lives in Seattle, and he was going to get a burrito. He wanted to see what a burrito would cost delivered from Chipotle. So basic chicken burrito, I think it was. Base cost $11.99. To my son's door, $32. It's because you got a bunch of these other extra charges in there that are meant to go to the delivery person. And yet, when my son Kiernan doesn't order that burrito, they get 0. And that's what's happened with their business, is it's just tanked because nobody wants to buy a $32 burrito. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. We need to prioritize helping restaurants adapt rather than continuing to make sacrifices at the expense of the workers who keep this economy strong. It's not within our ability to remove all risk from the restaurant industry. They can't do it. And so when you're layering more risk in the form of greater costs, you're going to make these already vulnerable businesses even more vulnerable. And what I'm seeing in the big blue liberal cities is, people from whether it's the city council or whomever or whatever industry group, and they're just like scratching their head. I don't understand why all the businesses are leaving. I don't get it. And you're like, it's because it's financially not feasible for them to make a go of it right now. You've created a situation where their costs have just, gone to the moon. And what'd you expect? Well, we thought everybody should have a fair wage. And I don't have an issue with the fair wage, but who determines that? What does that look like? Cost relative to, living expenses? You want to have a $50 minimum wage? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. You don't have the ability. Although, you know what? I shouldn't say that. Love to see that happen. Love to see that happen because it would just prove my point, right? Every single business goes out. They can't afford it. And then people come up with the ideas of, I don't get what happened. What went wrong? So today's story is just one more story where clearly Democrats running things in D.C. and their, overregulation of business and the impact hits the business And then the council has to go, maybe we miscalculated the impact that this would have on the entire industry. Maybe, just maybe. Why on the front end don't they understand these things? You know what I mean? It's just like, are you literally mentally challenged to the point where you can't see this coming from 100 miles away? And the answer is no, because they're Democratic Socialists of America, they're communists, they're whatever, right? They're whatever. What they are not is reasonable or Republican. They're not conservative. They don't get it. They just want what they want. They want their people to get what they want without any regard to profit, loss, viability, any of that stuff that everybody else has to take into consideration, because that's how the real world works. And unfortunately, these people don't live in the real world. They live in a world where they're told if you say things loud enough and often enough, people will believe you. And it's simply not true. It's like Antifa. Look at them. Just a bunch of little children playing at adults. And if they scream loud enough, they'll get the change that they need. How is that working out? How's that working out for you? Are you really getting some change in there? Protesters didn't like it because part of it got overridden. It got reversed because it wasn't going to work. It's not viable. It's not common sense. Hey, if a business can't make it, they close. And then they're done. Weird, right? Now, podcasts for days, weeks, months, years, millennia. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.